This is Brittany Blackwell, host of the Resilient Teacher Podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, along with this podcast. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcasts, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome, folks, to the Hitech Podcast.
It's that time.
It is the time when you tune in. You just hit play on whatever your device or software is.
In theory,
we're unfortunately with you. We're
unfortunately with you. Wow, that was
negative.
super rude. Like,
so
depending on how many people were currently listening to the podcast right now, you just offended a lot of people.
I think I offended myself because we are the problem, right? We are unfortunately being listened to. Like, that was the sentiment.
Oh, was that where you were going? Because it came out as like, we're unfortunately with you. Like,
no. We love them. They they're suffering us.
That was a self insult,
self-deprecating thing.
Yeah, self-deprecating. That's the more fancy, nice word I was looking for, but I didn't do that. So,
So here we are. Instead of making fun of everyone and dissing, we should just move on to the positive things. Like, we are in episode 147 of the Hitech Podcast. Welcome to the show, my friends. We are having a fun time digging back into some AI. It's been a minute. Josh and I talked about like some Apple Vision Pro things a couple episodes ago.
That is the episode that just released as we're recording this one. I'm now starting to look to see what the episode that came
was
before
4
this
episodes
one was.
ago.
Because I think it'd be really funny if the episode that came before this and we kind of forgot was about AI. Oh, it's Christy. Okay, yeah. Never mind.
2 episodes before this should have been AI. If we kept
You're on top of things. It's fine.
I'm looking at it. I got it here.
You got it? Okay, you got it up. That's cool. That's nice. And this would have went different if Will had a co-host that just trusted that he knew what he was talking about. So we're gonna do this again. Okay, so we're gonna be fine. It's time. And then you do your.
Hey, unfortunately, you're here with us. Oh, dang it! We rewound too far.
That was too
stuck.
That probably never needs to happen again. Did you hear the sound of that? That was the loss of a listener. We just lost the listener.
It's a very quiet sound. Must happen a lot.
Yeah.
Folks, this episode is going to be a whole conversation with Simon Nicholas over at Archer. Archer is a math tutoring platform that is A, awesome, and B, trying to focus right now on the SAT space, right? They've just released a whole bunch of support on the SAT and supporting learners who are dealing with kind of those content areas. But it's like 8th grade up mathematics, and we're going to kind of get into a little bit about how Archer came to be, what Archer's trying to do, but also like why AI? Why did AI need to be the solution for this issue of trying to help learners with mathematics? And I think it's a pretty convincing case, because the option that Simon first came up with, I was thinking about during the interview, Josh, if you and I were to build what he was suggesting, just like think about that in an e-learning context, right? That would be like 500 slides deep.
Yeah,
and just all these little branching scenarios.
I was immediately thinking of because what he was talking about, and you'll hear it in the interview. So this is fun. This is really good when we talk about this beforehand, and you have no idea. Yeah. Would be so Will and I do a lot of e-learning development in a program called Articulate Storyline, and that's my immediate response was I could do that in Articulate Storyline, except for the fact that Will is right. There would be so many slides, it would be bad. Hitting preview on that project would be the worst thing in the entire world.
Go do your work day and then come back and be able to use
just nothing but a loading bar. Isn't all the listeners have no idea what's happening right now? It's fine. Trust me and Will. If you
hang in there,
if you knew, just hang in there. It would be an experience. Anyway, this is a super cool interview. It's a lot of fun. Really cool use of AI. I think it's a good example of what AI tutors could look like. That conversation's come up a lot as we've been talking about AI. I think a lot of people are aiming for that, that golden golden target. I don't know what word I'm looking for. I can't come up. That's clearly an analogy that everybody knows.
It's been a long
golden targets. It's been that kind of day. No, they're chasing the dream, which is like some kind of like perfect AI tutor. I think Archer does a really cool concept that has some interesting ideas behind it. So with that said, Will and I have just got so many great words that like we know we've been really interesting you with this introduction, but it's time to hear from Simon, you know?
Yep.
Simon has something to say, you know, and it's time to hear from Simon.
Without further ado, what Simon says. All right, folks, we are here with Simon Nicholas, who is the founder of Archer. Very excited to learn more about Archer and a little bit about Simon. I want to start, though. We got a little bit of a fun, funny, jokey question of what the heck is Archer's name? So we got the website, okarcher.com, but the product is Archer. Help us land the plane there, Simon. Where are we at?
Yes, believe it or not, archer.com was taken, so we had to come up with a website. My partner and I, as good millennials, I guess is what we are. I don't know, maybe we're something like that. We're big fans of Radiohead, so he was like, "How about like OK Archer, like OK Computer?" Even though that's a very kind of anti-technology, like fear of technology, I was like, "Doesn't really work, but I like it, so we're doing it." So the website is,
I love that that's the reference that got your website. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so there we go.
That's perfect.
Maybe not the
it
most
sounds like
auspicious reason, but yeah.
If you've got a .com, then you probably started this before the ChatGPT, boom. Otherwise, it'd be .io, like for whatever reason, or .ai. That's the other two popular ones.
Right. Yeah. We the company was actually founded probably right at the beginning of that, right at the beginning of the GPT stuff. So props again to my partner for coming up with a name that escaped the .ai. As we'll get into the genesis of the company, the ideas behind the company far predated ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It was like sort of I like to think of it like the technology caught up with the mission, but so like now it like enabled us to do what I've like long wanted to do.
That's awesome. All right, so I threw us right in the deep end, but let's peel back a little bit. You were telling us a little bit beforehand. I was looking at bio, like long-term educator, but situate us. How did Archer come to be? If you're outside of education now, where did you kind of roll into this mission and vision for a product like Archer?
So my first job after college was as a middle school math teacher. I went to work. I was a Teach for America guy, and I went to work in Southwest Philly. Yeah, and I was thrown into 8th grade math. And actually, I hadn't taken math in a very long time. I liked math in high school, but I didn't take any in college. So I was like, I'll do Teach for America. I'd like to be Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society. Sign me up for high school. Sign me up for high school English. And they were like, great, we need math teachers. You're a math teacher now. So
Huzzah.
And I was like, and I definitely don't want middle school kids. They're like, that's what we need. You're a middle school math. And it was amazing. I mean, first of all, like middle school kids are hilarious. So I really, really enjoyed it. And I was 8th grade my first year, and then 7th and 8th grade my second year. And this was a 30 kids in a class, 90
Teach for America kind of situation.
Yeah. It was like we were right in the middle of Southwest Philadelphia, and the leadership at our school was really good, but the school itself was dealing with a lot of challenges. The neighborhood dealt with a lot of challenges. The kids were coming from situations that were less than ideal, like much of the time, and they had to bring all that in with them, and it was tough for them. And after that, as I alluded to a little earlier, I was sort of simultaneously in my mind, creative guy, and I wanted to be screenwriter, and I had a little bit of I had the itch for that. So I was like, I'd like to stay in education, but I kind of want to pursue screenwriting. I got to be able to do both things. So I became a tutor. And I will tell you that the jump from working as a middle school math teacher in Southwest Philadelphia to working as a private tutor on the Upper East Side of New York is dramatic. It's a dramatic change.
Sounds like a short step. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds like right next to each other. That's
they both present different challenges, but obviously you cannot have both of those jobs and not be just really smacked in the face with how how inequitable math education is in America. And it did not, I would say even from before I took the job, I knew like, well, with this job, if I get this training, I'd really like to be able to take what I'm learning here and bring it to kids who need it the most, bring it to the kids who I used to work with. And in fact, in my early years many years ago, I actually did take on some of my old students, just like pro bono, like I'll tutor you on the SAT, I'll tutor you on the ACT. Cool. So I'd always wanted to do it. And I became, at the company at the time that I worked for, I became the class teacher. In addition to doing private one-on-one, I was the guy who did all of the financial aid classes. So it's always been something I wanted to continue to do. The pandemic happened, and I think like many people, you might be aware, and a couple of things, in my brain, I was like, I had a kid, there's this pandemic, and I was like, I think I got to go after the thing I really care about at this point in my life, which is having the sort of impact on the sort of students who need it the most. So I quit my job, and I started off on my own. Yeah. Had a kid, quit my job. So I started on my own, and I got in touch with my college roommate. So lucky for me, I had this mission and I had absolutely no technological skill whatsoever. So
you saw the end position, and you knew you had to do it, but no idea how.
Zero technological. Again, hadn't taken math since high school, even though it put me in. But my college roommate, fortunately for me, is a brilliant guy who had, by the time we were juniors, had built a successful business that he was operating out of our dorm room. I mean, it was like the kind of thing where, I came back senior year. I remember spring of my senior year coming back and being like, why is there like a 50-year-old woman in our dorm room at your computer? He's like, that's my assistant right now. I was like, okay, great, fine. This is, by the way, not allowed at the college, but we were
this is a Facebook story, like suddenly there's two twins involved.
I didn't get that Byzantine, but yes. So anyway, luckily for me, we've been friends, obviously, super close friends, and we talked about working together on EdTech before, but this was really the perfect timing. I felt like I remember calling him and being like, Ben, now is the time to do this. So I came up with this idea, or had this idea of an adaptive tutoring platform where, and this was not a great idea, where like I would basically teach a concept and then there would be lots of points of friction along the way, right? So I would stop and check for understanding, and then the student would answer a question, and then depending on that answer, the video, the instruction would change. This would be an incredibly long and arduous undertaking, but fortunately, ChatGPT and AI started to become much more prevalent right about the time we started this company. And I don't remember, I was probably Ben, but it was both of us at the same time being like, maybe we should just use that. It must have been late February, early March when we made this decision, and we had a pilot going by April. That's how quickly Ben was able to build it, and we really knew what we wanted to do. So that long-winded answer is how Archer was founded. It's something I've always wanted to do. The technology has made it feasible. So now Archer is an AI-powered, teacher-controlled math platform designed to elevate math learners at all levels. And our goal is to end math learning loss in America.
Wow.
Wow.
So to speak to the original idea, though, briefly, and even to kind of address the burden you alleviated in your own platform, it sounded like you wanted to build kind of a scenario-based learning experience where they'd come to the question, they'd try it out a little bit, and if there was a friction, if they got it right, they got it right. But if there was a friction point, it would branch. Like, all right, now you need to know this, and then it would take them further down that. And if they had another friction point, like you said, it might branch again. And now you need to know. And I'm thinking probably video, like let's beat Khan Academy, and all of a sudden you've got a video that's like in its full form might be 3 hours long, but it's like all of these 30-second clips, right?
You're right. And it would have been It would have been another. I think I actually went down the road and did like a little demo with that, but probably
That sounds
at the
cool.
end of 2022. It was a lot of work, and it was good. It was good that I had done the work. Like it kind of. But it was probably not going to work. But I think the key thing that you sort of said back is that friction. As a teacher, as a tutor, I know, and like any good teacher, any good tutor is going to know, learning really happens at the friction point, right? Particularly, I feel like with math, where you're faced with a problem, you don't see the answer. What are you going to do to get to the answer? How are you going to struggle through it?
Yeah.
And it's like, building a tunnel in your mind that's going to get you from point A to point B. And that I had not seen that in an EdTech product. I just hadn't seen anything that had been able to engage you in that way. There are good products. I'm not saying there are no good, there are lots of good things, particularly for younger learners. I think there are a lot of, visual and, visual models that are helpful for kids for things like division and multiplication. But, what about for logarithms? That it's a little hard to visualize that. So, how are you going to engage kids that way and not get them frustrated from the jump? So even though we couldn't do the video thing, that friction principle remained.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. I hear a little bit of the friction, kind of the adaptive idea a little bit, kind of being able to adapt to the learner in there, which is really cool. Side note, before I ask my next question, your entrance story into this app sounds like it would make a great movie. So if you know a script writer, you should, hit him up. Gotta
know the end of the story first. I can write my own.
But so I'm curious in this, so obviously I already have some ideas, and knowing from looking at the site and looking at Archer what it looks like. But for our listeners, how are you guys actually using AI in the tutoring tool? So how has AI become kind of the big component for you guys? What was the game changer with that?
So the number one way we're using AI is just when a student does a problem, they are able to solve it with the guidance of a rigorous AI tutor. This is not like an open-ended chatbot, right? So this isn't like, got a problem here, let me help you. So what we feature, and this has been iterated to get to this point, again, thinking about what you need as a tutor, we have laid it out so that the kid sees a problem and the kid is shown a calculator, boxes to put their steps, and they can add steps as they go. And then for every step, they can say, I'm stuck. We got rid of, it used to be ask hint. We got rid of ask hint because we don't want kids just clicking hint.
Right.
I'm stuck. I reflect it back. Well, what do you know? What do you see in the problem? We've got check my work, which I'll tell you in pilots was the number one thing that kids love to do is just check their work. And then the third thing is we have a message, if you do want to chat, have a specific question, then you can do that. And, if you're given a specific follow-up, what the AI will do is it'll ask you a specific follow-up question. You can answer it in the chat that way. So you can be engaged in that chat, but it's not supposed to be this way open-ended experience unless you want it to be. We know that kids need to sort of stay on task, get, see through what they know. And to check my work, I think one of the reasons the kids liked it so much is because they would feel like, I think I'm doing this right, but I feel like maybe I missed a plank along the way. So they click check my work, and it's actually steps, the last thing you showed was great, and the thing after that was great. I think you made an arithmetic mistake back earlier. Take a look at this thing again. So that's the number one way that we're using AI in the platform. We've used it other ways too. So and this is one of the use cases that for teachers is there's an evaluation tool. So if a kid takes a problem set and the teacher can just click evaluate, and then it'll evaluate the problem set and analyze. These are the questions the kid got right and wrong. Seems like they need to work on this concept, that concept. So it's analyzing the work the student did. And we're also using it. We can also use AI to generate problems. So this is something that with math, you got to be really rigorous about, because it's getting better and better. But the more challenging the problem, the more likely you are to see the AI make an error when it's solving it or made a problem that doesn't totally align. I think, early tutoring platforms ran into this issue, which is why with our platform now, every problem is pre-vetted. We made them all. And if you want to make more, let us know and we'll make more. But the way that Archer works is whenever it writes a problem, it also solves it step by step. So if you notice a mistake, whoever's created the problem notices like, that was weird. They can either edit the steps and fix the problem. They can change the names of the problem, do whatever they want. So that by the time the student interfaces with it, everything's cool. So the kid's not going to get an answer that's right and then be told they're wrong or something like that.
Well, and on your website, you have like an intro video or something. And one of the problems in it is like a car goes on sale for 80% of its original price. The original price was $16,000. What is the sale price? That's a formulaic question. You could write 1,000 of those, right? It can be 75% of 15,000. It can be blah, blah, blah. That's easy. But you're like, and that's not what you're saying is the problem. You're saying it like, I'm creating a brand new problem, like I'm not even coming up with one of those basics. And we got to make sure we check AI because it could hallucinate, it could change. So that's where we could miss things.
I mean, it's gotten a heck of a lot better. I mean, I will say, like when we first started out, we were using earlier models. It was like, hey, it is going to take a long time. Now it's very rare to encounter a mistake, but you got to check, even if it's something, like a rounding error or something like that. Something where pi, it rounds pi, but you didn't want them to round pi. Like little things like that. We just don't want that level of frustration for student. But that's why we say it's a teacher controlled AI powered math tutor.
Okay.
Because, what's the best thing that AI can do for us right now is it's efficient and it can scale this rigorous tutoring. What's the best thing a person can do in this context is check the AI. Like just make sure it's doing a good job. So, yeah,
that's fair. Well, and so the power that's coming out there is like you can make a question bank that is that formula of question percentage of price. Okay, so you could have an infinite number of those, but you're saying you're working on this to then make overall a platform bank of material. You have 1,000 questions, 2,000. You're kind of building that library,
right? So right now we just released our SAT digital SAT math platform. So the SAT changed to a digital format, and the SAT is can be really, really helpful for students who are looking for scholarships. It opens so many doors for students, and you talk to a lot of charter school principals and public school principals, and they're like, the SAT can be really helpful for us. Like our kids can really benefit from it, but they don't always have tutors, right? Or good tutors.
Right.
And schools spend like a ton of money on resources that don't work. So we're like, we could be a solution for you guys. And the SAT is a good example of those questions are, so we've got a question bank of over 2,000 questions just for the SAT, broken down by category. And those do get quite nuanced. Those do, and they vary a little bit. And that being an area where I've done a lot of work, I know okay, there's that percent question that you just asked me, but then there's another form of that question where it's a little bit harder to diagnose, where they give you, there's a realtor fee on top of the discounted fee, but then also you have to pay a tax, and suddenly it becomes a much more bespoke question. And that we can build it, make sure it's right, and then we can replicate it and make sure that those replicas are right. And that becomes a really new, powerful thing that we can do through Archer.
Wow. So instead of us having to make 100 30-minute branching videos, you now have several thousand questions people can work through and respond to. And you didn't need to hire a team of 15 mathematicians to write all these. You got it, write them all for you, and now you're able to check, verify, but keep the AI involved in that process. Do you have teachers on team kind of thing, or are you checking each one yourself? Where's that process for you?
Great question. So I checked a lot of them myself, but then I started to not be able. It was like one of those things you're snowblind, and you're like, I don't know what 2 + 5 equals anymore. So I hired a math tutor who used to be a BC calculus teacher in Atlanta, who happens to be my sister-in-law, who's fantastic.
Aha.
And I was like, hey, would you like to help out with this? And she was really, really, really fastidious about going through everything. And it gave me a tremendous amount of help. So
you just won, I think, you just won the Hitech Podcast Encyclopedia Award for using the word fastidious in a sentence naturally, not even trying.
Like I said, I've been an SAT tutor for a very long time. Back to so.
I was about to be like, I didn't know we gave away awards. That's fun. Yeah,
one.
I did notice that as well. I was like, that's a Will word right there. I love this idea. I think there's a couple different things. Like, as we're just kind of processing what you're talking through. First, I just have to admit, Simon, I love that what you guys decided to do was, you said it way much earlier on in the episode, but not just a chat tool with the AI and going back and forth. Because Will and I have been talking about this a lot. While there's a lot of cool stuff that's out there, and I want to emphasize that we've interviewed a handful of people who have chat-based AI stuff, and I like it. It's just it's at a certain point there seems to be just so much of that where like it's just kind of this open-ended space talking back and forth. So I like that you've got a little bit more of kind of a controlled area, and you're focusing in on, again, really at the end of the day, the core that you went to, which is like this pain point spot, this frustration spot. How do we bring somebody in there? As somebody who, we've talked about this before in the podcast, like math was not my favorite thing at all, and I was quite horrible at it. I still am. Calculators did not help that, although, who on you, math teacher? My calculator is in my phone. I remember my parents getting me a math tutor at one point because I was struggling. My frustration was like, I would spend all this time on this homework, and then I get to class and like half of it was wrong because there was one thing that I messed up, and then that went through every question in some of the homework, and it was so demoralizing as a student to try to get into that space. Like you lost motivation because you felt like, oh, I'm not good at this. So this is really cool that you're like coming in the midst of there, and like it's hard to get tutors for, like, you joked about it, but like those resources are not there for every student. So I think this is really cool. It's a lot more accessible.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut off your question, but
no, go for it.
One thing you said that I wanted to mention was like that feeling of like, when I got it wrong, like I can't believe I got it wrong again. And like a good tutor, a good teacher, a good tutor is going to try to make you not focus on what you got wrong, but like just keep the process going. So in our very first trial, we ran a trial with a charter school in Nashville. It was a small group of kids, and the first feedback we got was, change when it's an incorrect answer, please change the bar from like red to a nicer color, because like red felt like it just hurt feelings. So we changed it to periwinkle. But then we actually took it a step further, which was when a kid gets a question wrong, let's not have it be like marked wrong. Let's prompt them to keep going. Be like, looks like you made, like you're close. Or so now, in order to be marked wrong, again, yes, there are like assessment tools we can use on it that will not tell you if you're right or wrong. You can't use the chat. But when you're just engaged with the tutor, if you submit the wrong answer, it's going to prompt you to keep going and go back into your work. And if you're like, don't worry, it's not like you're stuck in a maze you can't get out of. You have to click view solution. And it's like, well, if you click view solution, then now you'll be marked wrong, and then it'll show you the solution. But we try to make it hard to be frustrated,
Well, that speaks to the universal design principle of forgiveness, right? It's giving these students a chance to fail softly, to fail without consequence, that there's a space to try again, keep trying one more time. We know in kind of like brain science and cognitive learning science, like the idea of making somebody go against something that's hard, but not too hard. We want them to take a little step, but not too big of a step. Like that idea of I+1 or zone of proximal development. Like one of these kinds of tools is that intervention that stops Josh from getting to school with all of the problems. Like Josh is saying, like I take my homework in and it's all then you're just done. The person is emotionally like, well, I failed this one. Why should I even try the next one? And so if we get that intervention in sooner, quicker, earlier, and there's smaller interventions, the student won't even recognize that it's an intervention. They'll just assume it's a part of the learning process. Whoa, that's a beautiful thing. We want that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, I like the wording choice change too, of like you're close or some of those ideas, because it's a motivator. It's like it's not you're not totally off, which is the reality. Like in a lot of times I think in math, you look at it, you go, yeah, there's a little piece that you missed, or this one part is off. If you just tweaked this or you re-looked at this, the rest of the problem would come together. And I think a lot of times when we come at those issues with students, it's saying like, well, you messed up this one part. All the student hears is, I messed up the entire question. Like that's basically what they end up hearing. And so I like that idea of you're close, and whatever, as you said, you change it to periwinkle. In my head, I'm sitting there thinking, what color is periwinkle? Like,
I think it's periwinkle. It's like a light purple blue.
We're not color guys. It's
it was a fun color transition. Like, don't make it red.
Okay, that was my
partner. Cool, periwinkle it is.
My partner's the design guy too. He picked the color. I was like, Ben, it just can't be red. I was like, got it,
gotcha.
No longer red.
Perfect. Very cool. Now I want to jump into, you kind of alluded to this, Simon, and for those who teach math, obviously there's probably immediate ideas are jumping out in their heads as they're listening to this of what it looks like. But how have you been seeing teachers leverage Archer now? So obviously you got the SAT platform you've been talking about a little bit. You've been doing tutoring, but what's been the big stuff you've been seeing teachers really find success with using Archer?
The best way for teachers to use Archer that we've seen are when they just the teacher doesn't have to be the middle person on this, right? Because if the teacher is constantly needing to regulate what kids are doing and individualize for each kid is really, really tough. Where we see success is when students need to work on a specific concept or a series of concepts, and the teacher just puts them on Archer, and then they can practice through Archer, and the teacher can see what they're doing, but the teacher's not, and so they're getting that kind of tutoring from Archer as part of their classroom experience or part of their homework experience. But the teacher themselves like doesn't need to be doing all of that prep work for it. So that's where we see the most success. I'm thinking of a few examples where there was like a lesson, like lessons on, say, factoring a quadratic equation or something like that. Or word problems where you need to find the vertex of a parabola from a word problem. When you can learn it once, but you want to see it in a million different ways, and you want to sort of see that kid struggle through new things. When the teachers who put kids on those, let kids practice through that platform, you see growth. They see growth in the student on that concept, from problem 1 to problem 2 to problem 3 to problem 4. One of my favorite experiences that you can like record, you can watch screen records, or the tab is recorded for the teacher. So we have recording,
like the chat.
Yeah. And just like where the student's cursor is on the screen, and everything is timed. Okay. So there is sorry if you can hear my kids.
You're good.
But they're having a great time.
Yes. But there is a problem. It was an ACT problem on compound probability. And the way that the problem set is built, there were 2 problems in a row that were very similar. And this was a very bright kid who had never seen this concept before. And he took about 8 minutes to get the first question right. Eventually he got there, but he made a couple mistakes and then he got it right. And I think it took like 8.5 minutes. And he asked like a million hints. The next problem, he got it right in a minute. And it was like, it was really similar. It was like, there it is. No one showed this kid how to do it, right? He was engaged, he knew what he was doing, and he was just engaged with the chatbot and, engaged with Archer, using it properly. And there you go. I was like, he learned that concept. And I think another really cool thing is, because we have these, I don't want to say guardrails. It's not like to keep kids safe. Obviously it's perfectly safe, but it's more like just a focusing device. So like, these are the buttons that will help you, and it's not open-ended. We got to get kids like learning how to use generative AI. Like, how do you engage with this feature? So that's one of the really successful things we've seen. The other thing, it's like totally off the beaten track, and it wasn't even something that I'd conceived of when we built Archer. But we have a partner school in Virginia, and this biology physics teaches 8th grade biology and physics, like or chemistry and physics. He was like, I see potential with this. Can I just like take this and run with it? And we were like, okay, man, like go have at it. And we let him like create problems and whatever. I visited his classroom over the winter, and he had built this like 10-question problem, like a 10-part problem, got increasingly more challenging. He paired up his students, and they were just checking their work through Archer step by step. And once, I remember, and like once they got through one part, they could go to the next, and they knew what they were doing. And the coolest thing was at some point there was a question about one of the laws of thermodynamics. And someone was like, what's the first law of thermodynamics? And they were like, just ask Archer. And I was like, yes, this is great. I don't know the first law of thermodynamics.
Yep.
Don't ask me. I'm just an observer in the classroom. So like that was to me like just an incredible wow moment of like, this is when you get a creative teacher who's like in command and is not overwhelmed. And this teacher, it's not just like, he wasn't just a great teacher. He was not overwhelmed by his circumstances. Then there's a whole other use case too.
Yeah.
That's
that's
cool.
a beautiful thing. And you're right to say like, all these, some of Josh's point earlier about some of the other AI tools we talked to is like, they're kind of just reskinning ChatGPT. There's a difference between having a mission vision like yours that's driving towards something using the platform. It's okay to use even just the API to GPT or something like that if you're not building your own LLM or whatever. But like the idea of driving the kids towards something, you are creating an experience to teach them math. That is a tool, and all the better to use something that can mold, bend, twist to what the kids are doing, right? Like you built this for quadratic equations, and this kid's asking it the first law of thermodynamics. Great. Yeah. This should be the natural growth of it, and suddenly Archer will be be over time a tutor for all the types of learning that people can come up against. But I love to hear that.
Thank you.
We've really
and I want to. Will,
before
you jump into, I know you're about to go into your next question, but I want to highlight something for the learners too, or for the learners, the listeners. Sorry, you can tell I work. They are learning. Hopefully, you're learning. While you're driving to whatever work situation you're going to, or if you're like me doing other work. Anyway, I want to highlight just one thing, and I think Simon, what I really like about what you've done is that I think this is what works really well when things that get me excited about ed tech is when somebody takes a tool. Takes this idea, but really what they're doing is building in the core elements that we know work in learning, which is like at the end of the day is what you're kind of doing. Like you've built in the practice, the low stakes, kind of being able to have almost kind of fun with it, fail a little bit, but getting feedback in those tense moments, being able to scaffold out doing the things like that. I love hearing about that giant problem because at the end of the day, like that's what they're basically doing. They took your system and kind of scaffolded out a larger thing and be able to teach students that. It's super cool. I think like as we're thinking through how you use AI and technology, like this is a great example for those listening of like, at the end of the day, those core principles we talk about all the time of like what good learning looks like, those are what matter. And you've leveraged those into a tool and created a really cool experience. So props to that. Also just, I think that's really cool. That's just
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we've got a pretty good picture of Archer. It's not archery. It's not the TV show. It's the math tutor extraordinaire. What's upcoming? Is there anything you're looking to kind of bleed into? Is science next because of this one teacher, or where are we going?
That's a great question. I think we got to keep the main thing right now. So one thing with AI in general, and we have certainly felt this at times with Archer, at least I know I have, is there is like an, oh my gosh, we can do so much, like a gee whiz element to it. We really want to focus on, elevating kids' math scores. That's what we're doing right now. And like, trust me, I've got a million things in my mind I want to do with that. I mean, my dream is to have every teacher be able to put their curriculum through Archer so that every class looks like that, or not, every class looks like the personalized version of that physics class that I saw in Virginia. In 10 years, like that's my dream. And do we want to build out different curricula for, 6 through 12, and we want to build out a physics curriculum, and we want to build out a chemistry curriculum. What's next for us right now is getting schools and getting as many kids possible just learning through Archer. So while there's a lot we know we can do and know we will do, right now we got to keep it, I feel like the best thing we can do is make sure that we're doing everything we can to make this platform the best as possible, best as it can possibly be. I hope the grammar was right on that sentence. For the kids who really need to use it.
Yeah, we'll have to ask Archer about the grammar. Maybe it can help us.
Yeah.
That's awesome. When I go to your website, if I head over to okarcher.com, I see a login button. If I click on that login button, it says put in an email address to get a link. So is this our best route? Where do you want to drive?
So the way that I would do it right now, what we're again featuring this math platform, SAT math platform. So right now, the best thing to do would be go to and yes, it's SAT math, but you will see that it is really like algebra 2, geometry, 8th grade down through 8th grade math. So it gives you a really good sense of what else we can build and what else we have built. I'd go to okarcher.com/SAT. And if you do that and enter your login, you're going to be welcomed for free to the SAT course. And that'll, if you're taking the SAT, have at it. And if you're a teacher who wants to learn more about how Archer works, it's pretty intuitive to use that platform. So, if you like the way that works, but you have some slightly different use case for your class, it's still going to give you a good sense of what we can do and how we work.
I am not lying to you. I've just taken that link. I've copied it and pasted it into my texting app to send it off to my aunt, whose son is looking at the SAT very shortly.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So, hopefully you'll get a little use case test in here. He'd be somebody who I think would love the extra support. So that's just literally it's there. I'll send it once we've got a time to think about what. But I've pasted it so I can make sure that gets at least one more hand.
I copied the link to send it to Past Josh in high school. If I can send it back in time, that would be great. But yeah, very cool.
Well, this has been fantastic, Simon. Thank you. Folks, head over to okarcher.com, okarcher.com/SAT if you want to get signed up. That's great. I'm assuming you're on some of the socials and stuff. People can follow you and get connected in those ways. But just want to get this in hands, right?
That's right. We're at Archer Ed AI on Twitter. And, if you're interested in us, you can just, my email is simon@okarcher.com. And, happy to get in touch. And, we've got webinars coming up with demos. And it was great. It's been a lot of fun. It's weird talking to people over about Archer and not doing a demo. This is the first time I've done this in a long time. Where I'm actually showing the demo. I keep getting ready to share my screen, but I don't have to do it.
Oh, wait. We'll have to have a round 2 because we've only just recently started using StreamYard, this platform we're in, which does let us do screen sharing, but we forget about it.
Yeah. Well, so much of our audience listens on audio, so it's fine.
It's also true.
Yeah, but
that's also true. Well, again, thank you so much. We're going to wrap up the episode here in just a moment, but we appreciate you taking the time with us and sharing the word.
I appreciate it, guys. This is a lot of fun.
Well, that was an experience, man. That was a cool interview. Awesome. Yeah, there's so many things to that story of how Archer about. Now that you have listened to it, you may know what Will and I are talking about, how crazy Simon's original idea would have been to build. I think it's a really cool concept. But the
AI does all that work.
It kind of came in and filled it. Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept about how they ended up deciding to use AI. That intrigues me the most is it's not just. Well, I've talked about this. Like it's just not a chat tool. Like so many AI tools right now are chat tools, and like I get it. Like, but it's I don't know how to package my feelings about that yet. It's kind of like the first person.
You should go ask ChatGPT about it.
I guess it's kind of like the first person released a car, and then everybody just like kept saying they were making new cars, but it's just the same car, which we kind of did anyway. So like I don't know why I'm having this feeling, but like it's you're at the end of the day you're like those are 4 wheels, and what Simon did was like, I see that car, but I'm going to take the wheels off.
We're going to
make
it fly.
it better. And I'm going to make it fly. Like that's kind of, this was a bad analogy. I should have backed off of him from the start. Will, save me really quickly. Go.
Save me from the... Oh, this wasn't karaoke. Sorry.
No, please not.
No, what we got to hear, though, from Simon's experience is not only his mission and vision to solve an issue, but he's coming out of... He came from the problem space, right? Being a math teacher, being a math tutor, he has felt these problems in real time. He's seen what students are struggling with. And I'm really encouraged that, he's not trying to make an AI tool to revolutionize math or to change the way math works in education. He understands how math works in education, and he's trying to help the students engage with it, right? This is actually addressing more than just the tutoring thing. This is math education in America, right? We know that there's probably some issues. I would assume that there's some issues with the way the tests are written and the way that the standards are placed and the way that the states require the learners to do certain things. And he's over here like, okay, I'm not going to fix that today, but what I can do is make the students' learning process more efficient, easier, more effective. And isn't that what every teacher does want? We want our learners to get into the material and to learn it. And if a tool like this can help them when I'm not in the room, frankly, I see this as just as much a boon as something like Alongside, right? We've had an episode on Alongside before, but that's a platform that's intended to not replace the counselor, but to put a counseling-based support system in every student's hands. This is not intended to replace the math teacher. It is intended to put a math support system into every student's hands.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful thing. We want to see more students having the chance to play in a safe space around mathematics to teach them the core elements of what they need to survive and succeed in, the academic system. But I would think even like I've struggled with math as a learner. Josh, you were referencing your experience having to get a tutor and stuff like that. But I know that there's plenty of students out there who are probably pretty good or good enough at math who might have done more with it or gotten into learning even math adjacent subjects like engineering or computer engineering, coding and stuff like that. But they lost the interest because of a tough math teacher or not understanding it or always getting their homework wrong. Things here that a tool like Archer could intervene in and help them succeed earlier, save that passion for mathematics. I think it's a beautiful thing.
I would agree. I mean, it comes in, and again, at the core underneath everything he comes up with in this tool is good educational practice. Like it's good practices of like putting a student in a place where they're going to feel that tension point or that frustration and have a help in that space, but not a help that just gives them the right answer or tells them everything they did wrong, but like guides them along the process, encouraging them along that process, but also showing them where they might need to look again or where they might be off. And so that lessens the frustration. The story I gave is the story that many people have in a math circumstance where they end up doing a lot of work and then being disappointed at the end that they didn't do well. And that unmotivates people very quickly to even care about that subject or work at doing it. If you're there in that moment, at that moment of frustration, working with them through it, it becomes less of a frustration because they start to very quickly see progress, which motivates people. And I think that's what you're seeing in Archer and what's happening in this tool is it's helping motivate people. So I think there's lessons to be taken from that, whether you're somebody teaching math who could actually leverage Archer or you're somebody just thinking about what does good learning look like. This is another example of where again and again, this type of stuff keeps coming up in the podcast. And we talk about stuff from the, gamified episodes with Justin, talking about play in those areas to some of the other spaces we've been looking at and designing learning. Like there's something to having learners being able to have genuine experiences where it's okay to not get everything right and have something come along them and show them in increments how to fix that stuff so that they can actually see their progress. Any human being who actually sees progress in an area, I believe, will be attracted to that thing. because we like to feel that. We like to feel like we're doing better. We like to feel like we're getting better at something, right? And so like that's a big deal for what we're seeing. So I think you're seeing that in OKR, or you're seeing that in Archer, and you're seeing that in other places. And so no matter what it is, that's those simple practices help us learn. And I think that's what's working here. And again, anybody using AI, that would be my note to you. AI is not going to fix education, but AI leveraged to do things that we can't always do as humans, or is incredibly costly to literally have a person live with your student, telling them everything they need to fix in math problems. Like that's really cool. And this responsive type of learning, I think that's where the future is in some of this AI, if we can figure it out and use it well. And so I think Archer is a really great example of that. So really, if this is something you're looking for, you're teaching math or you're in that space, go check it out. Like we said, at okarcher.com or okarcher.com/SAT. I removed the banners in our system too early, so there's that. So they're not going to be popping up. But hey, look, they're back. So okarcher.com.
I'll get there.
SAT. Yeah, you nailed it. You go check that out. Please go check them out. I think this is really cool. I'm really excited about what Simon is doing. Plus, he's a fellow Lord of the Rings fan, so how could anybody go wrong in that area? So anyway, go check it out. okarcher.com/SAT. With that note, this has been another episode of the Hitech Podcast. On next at the Hitech Podcast, we're going to talk about something, but we don't know what it is right now.
Josh and I have had a couple of changes recently in the schedule, in life, and
some
so
interviews,
we're catching up.
Yeah, some things that moved around. It's
shifted.
Fine.
We'll get
It's
there.
all good. There will be an episode. We just don't know what that is going to be.
Folks, we have episode 149 and 50 planned, but 148 slipped through the cracks today, so we'll get there.
Yeah, or whatever episode comes after this one, because we've said episode numbers because things change around. And some things are changing on the Hitech Podcast. So
we're growing.
It's going to be interesting in a few months. So don't worry, we'll still be here, but we'll be about cooking. That's incorrect. That's not what the new thing is going to be. But if you
wrap us up.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Anyway, so just a reminder, check us out on Twitter and YouTube at Hitech Podcast. That is where you can find us right there. Also shoot us an email if you want to be on the podcast, you want to share us your opinion, you want to send us pictures of things, of animals and things. I don't know. We used to do that on the podcast.
If you remember that gig, then
that
you've been with us for a long time.
Just want to let us know how you're feeling, whatever that may be. Hit us up at inbox at hitechpod.us. And just a reminder, we do have a website. It's there, hitechpod.us. I kind of want to change it to okhitechpod.us now, but we're not going to do that.
All love, all fun.
Yes, no, I love it. That's why. Hitechpod.us. You can check out every episode you listen to has a fun episode page there with information on that website, so you can check that out. Please go follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on YouTube and whatever podcast platform you're listening to. Subscribe to us. That is super helpful for us. It helps the podcast out. And we would really appreciate that. So you can go check that out. Again, thank you for joining us for another week as we continue to learn what it looks like to shoot arrows. Just joking. To harness technology in the classroom, whether online or in person, or with a small, fun robot called Archer. See ya.
See ya.